Education, District 1. I'm married to Becky Rohrbaugh. We're going on our 48th year. I have 4 adult children, 13 grandchildren. I received my BS degree from Fort Hays State in 1975 and my master's degree in educational administration in 1988. My past experience includes 38 years of teaching social studies, driver education, serving as a school athletic director, and a high school principal. I've also coached high school basketball, high school track, and junior high football for approximately 38 years. My college education here at Fort Hays State includes 15 hours of political science, which includes a teaching endorsement in government. I retired from teaching full-time in 2010, and I've spent the last 7 years working part-time as a property inspector for the City of Hays. Some of my hobbies include officiating high school football on Friday nights, serving as a starter for high school and junior high track meets in the spring, and serving as a referee for college tennis matches, many that are held right here at Fort Hays. I'm a 1970 graduate of Ellis High School, and after teaching out of the area until 1989, our family moved to Ellis, where we have lived since 1990. Ellis County has played a major role in my career and has provided me and my family a great life. Now at this stage of my life, I'm ready to give back to Ellis County, keeping it a great place to live and work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schleier, you have 2 minutes for your opening statements.
Hi, my name is Butch Schleier. I'm a Republican candidate for the Ellis County Commission. I'm a lifelong resident of Ellis County, a 1969 graduate of Hays High School. I began my working career working for the E.J. Dreiling family here in Hays. They were the owners of the Midwest Tobacco and Candy Company. Used to be down on 9th and 4th Street, where the old Opera House was, which is now torn down. They were also the Budweiser wholesaler, and I delivered tobacco and candy products and was in the business of selling and servicing Budweiser. I entered college, Fort Hays State University, obtained 60 hours of general education. I transferred to Central States University in Edmond, Oklahoma for 3 semesters, got a degree in funeral service education. I served in the funeral profession for approximately 10 years, most of that time working for the Olive Bovey Corporation at Brock's North Hill Chapel here in Hays. I re-entered college, Fort Hays State, in 1990. I graduated in 1993 with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree. I worked just a short while at the Hays Medical Center, and then I was appointed as your Ellis County Health Administrator in 1994. I retired from that position in December of 2016. I'm married to my wife, Mary. We've been married for 45 years. She also has a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing from Fort Hays State. I have one daughter, Amanda, who also attended Fort Hays State and has her Bachelor of Science in nursing. I have one grandson, little Jimmy. He's 5 years old, and he really keeps me and Mary on my toes. I also have a dog named Millie, and my father, he's part of my immediate family because he lives with me.
5 seconds remaining.
He's a very, very proud World War II veteran. My hobbies include fishing, model boat building, and I'm a self-proclaimed handyman and always have a project going on around the house.
Time. Thank you. Mr. Walls.
Okay. As you know, I am John Walls. I'm the independent candidate running for Ellis County Commissioner. I'm married to Mary Jo Walls. We've been married about 26 years, have 4 children and 11 grandchildren. I have a son, Heath, that's down in Texas, a son, Adam, that's in Independence, Missouri, daughter, Beth, that lives in Rossville, and I actually have another son, Adam, that lives out in Grinnell. And so the kids always got a kick out of that, saying they had another brother, Adam. So anyway, I've been a lifetime resident of Ellis County. I grew up in the big city of Yosemite, Kansas. I've lived in Ellis for the last 30 years. I've worked all kinds of jobs throughout the years. I started out working construction, of course, hauling bales, worked at Heston Welding for a while, and then I worked for the City of Hays water plant for 4 years. Really enjoyed that. Then I went into business at the Taco House here in Hays, which was many years ago. and did that for about 8 years. Had a good time, met these gentlemen there. Actually, Butch was my beer man there, so back then. Worked for the Ellis Police Department for a couple of years, and then I came to work down here at Fort Hays State University on the police department, and worked here 23 years and left as a lieutenant here, and really proud of them down here. They've done a great job. Enjoyed working here, great place to work. I retired and
20 seconds remaining.
Oh my gosh, I didn't think I'd getting longer winning what I thought. Anyway, I currently work for the Ellis County Sheriff's Department, and the rest of it I will get to later, hopefully. We'll see if I have time or not. I thought, anyway, thank you all for showing up. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We will move to our first question for Mr. Rohrbaugh. What is the most pressing issue facing Ellis County?
Okay. I feel the most pressing issue facing Ellis County is the out-migration of young adults and college graduates to bigger cities like Denver, Kansas City, Wichita, and you know what I'm talking about. This brain drain has been going on for a number of years, and I think we all need to work together to figure out how to slow it down. It's obviously going to take a nice mixture of providing high-paying jobs, affordable housing, and great schools. I think the general cost of living in Ellis County is very favorable compared to our big city magnets. I think our schools, including our local Votech and Fort Hays State University, compare very well with the big city schools. We just have to all work together to retain and expand our industrial and commercial enterprises that provide these attractive, high-paying jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schleier, same question. What is the most pressing issue facing Ellis County?
The most pressing issue facing Ellis County is the budget, and more specifically, funding that budget. Ellis County has few sources of revenue. We rely on the real estate tax, oil and gas tax, and revenue collected by our departments. The county administrator created a spreadsheet, which I have in front of me, which projects an estimated deficit of almost $9 million in a short 5 years. A deficit that big is going to impact the people and the citizens of Ellis County. It may affect property taxes. If we don't decrease expenses, property taxes could go up by 17 mills, or approximately 40% more than what you're paying right now. If we want to curtail expenses of the county, that's going to impact services. Under County Administrator Sun, county budgets were tightened, and this goes back to 2012, 2013. The old saying that you do more with less, that ship sailed 5 or 6 years ago in Ellis County. If we cut expenses, we're going to be cutting services. It also impacts employee morale. Under County Administrator Sund, they done the Evergreen study. The Evergreen study illustrated to everyone what their placement on the salary survey would be based on their positions as well as their skill level. And up to this time, there has been little revenue available to put proper placement of employees on that study. And I know firsthand when I was in the health department, that study infected morale real bad.
20 seconds remaining.
And it's going to affect quality of life issues. We have a lot of what we called outside agencies that are funded by Ellis County. If those budgets are reduced or even eliminated, the quality of life in Ellis County is going to suffer because of it. So this budget deficit we're facing, it's a train wreck coming.
Thank you. Mr. Walls, same question. What is the most pressing issue facing Ellis County?
Okay. Balancing the budget that is projected to have a shortfall of nearly $3 million in 2020. It may not be quite that much. Budgets, projections, you never know, but it's definitely, there's going to be budget problems. There's no easy answers. Commissioners will need to work with the county administrator, department heads, employees, and citizens to get resolved. It needs to be a long-term solution that protects against losing valuable employees. We have a great bunch of employees, works toward catching up with areas of need in the county. We've fallen behind in many areas, buildings and things that just haven't been taken care of because there's been cuts and things haven't been addressed. And and the bottom line is keeping affordable to the taxpayers. Yeah, I was going to be short-winded on one, so that's it. So, thank you.
Thank you. The second question, we will start with Mr. Schleier. And the question is, if you plan to promote economic development, where and how should development be promoted?
Well, I'm favorable to more economic development in the county, whether that be commercial or residential. Development provides a broader tax base as well as jobs for the citizens in Ellis County. To facilitate development in Ellis County, probably one of the best things we could have is a very thorough, comprehensive plan. Such a plan would provide clear guidance on what benchmarks a developer needs to meet in order to create a development area. Benchmarks may include, but are not limited to, such things as acreage, lot size, access, water, septic systems, or proximity to others. Following a planning committee's recommendations, and should a developer complete all applied benchmarks, a development should be approved. Unless that development would provide a public nuisance, then I wouldn't be in favor of it.
Thank you. Mr. Walls, if you plan on promoting economic development, where and how should development be promoted?
Okay, we first need to promote the great assets that Ellis County has to offer. Communities that are safe, great locations to raise families and run businesses. We have hardworking citizens, great K through 12 schools in all of our cities in the county, top-rated university, ranked #1 in safety this week, which I'm very proud of, and Kansas history that is second to none in Ellis County. We have such history here that's unbelievable. We have major highways and an airport and strong existing businesses already here. Ellis County needs to work with all communities and Fort Hays State University promoting what they have to offer. We need to toot our own horn, and I'm afraid that isn't done enough. We have so much to offer in this community, and we need to tell people about it and get that out there. The other thing that we really need, Ellis County Commission needs to work with is the water coming in to Ellis County and help the city of Hays and other cities get more additional water in the county. This has been a stumbling block to get new businesses to locate here. Then we also need to work with Fort Hays State and Votex to make sure that we have adequate workforce, because that's been an issue in the past. When companies want to move in here, they feel that maybe we don't have enough of a workforce to fill what they want to do. So that is what I have to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rohrbach, same question. If you plan to promote economic development, where and how should development be promoted?
Okay, in promoting economic development in Ellis County, I think one of the smarter things we can do as a county commission is to get 100% behind our local economic development organization, Grow Hays. The Ellis County Coalition for Economic Development announced a name change in March of this year to Grow Hays. Just as the name implies, they are the local specialists in helping to start new businesses, retaining and expanding existing businesses, and adding to the local workforce. Their latest enterprise, Brief Space on West 10th Street in Hays, will be a great addition in promoting economic growth in Ellis County. I think all three communities in Ellis County plus the Ellis County Commission need to get behind this organization and provide the necessary financial support that this organization needs to grow Hays. In visiting with their director, Doug Williams, he agrees that it would be nice to have retail businesses such as Olive Garden, Chick-fil-A, Old Navy, and even Target, but it's not going to happen until we grow Hays. Thank you.
Thank you. Third question, we'll start with Mr. Walls. How do you plan to balance the Ellis County budget? Please provide specifics on any tax increases or budget cuts.
Okay, I see three alternatives to balancing the 2020 budget being projected with the shortfall. Of course, the worst one of all is raising property taxes to the cap. Unfortunately, that won't raise nearly enough to take care of things to start with. That would raise approximately $400,000 in a year, and that's not a good thing. We have to abide by the Kansas State Legislature that implemented a cap. So that would be the amount we could bring in for that. Like was said earlier, cutting services to the citizens of Ellis County. And there again, I would reverse that question to the citizens of Ellis County. What would they like to see cut if we need to cut things? In which, we need to find out what they would be willing to put up with as far as cuts. I've talked to the department heads, the majority of them in the county. They have cut, and they have cut, and they have cut. And I think we're at the bottom of cutting without losing services. So that we'll either lose services or they will slow down. And in this world, I'm not sure who will put up with that. So that's something that I would want to talk with the many citizens of Ellis County and see what direction they would want us to go, and if there's anything they're willing to give up as far as cuts in that area. The third thing that I've thought of, and there again, none of these are great solutions, but it's a major problem, is adding a question on the ballot, and this will be up to the voters to either add a half-cent
20 seconds.
to 1 cent additional county sales tax. Half cent would raise about $1,440,000. Of course, 1 cent would be $2,880,000. Not a great solution, but it allows people from the outside to help us pay for our budget.
That's time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rohrbaugh, how do you plan to balance the Ellis County budget?
Did we check for tomatoes as it came in? There might be some tomatoes thrown on this. All right, here we go. The budget. The Ellis County budget is the elephant in the room. Currently, Ellis County is spending $2.4 million more than it's bringing in. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out what it takes to balance the budget. You either raise property taxes, you cut county services, or you do some combination of both. Ellis County must deal with the state-imposed county tax lid that basically limits the county to not adding more than 1 mil to the budget per year. 1 mil raises approximately $390,000 in Ellis County a year. So if you do the math, that leaves about $2 million yet to be accounted for. In the county's 2019 budget, approximately $2 million is budgeted for health insurance. I think there needs to be some serious discussion on this issue, and most likely some tough decisions will have to be made. I also think the three commissioners need to lead the fight in reducing this budget deficit, and here is how I think they can do it. There's no tomatoes, right? Okay. Ellis County provides health insurance and CAPERS retirement for all three commissioners at a cost of $61,000 a year, or $244,000 approximately over a 4-year term. I say eliminate this cost entirely and save the taxpayers $244,000 over a 4-year term. The next step I favor is cutting the three commissioners' total yearly salary of $60,000 a year in half, thus saving another $30,000 a year, or $120,000 over 4 years. This won't solve that $2 million deficit, but it would be a step forward for commissioners to lead the way.
20 seconds remaining.
Okay, I'm hurrying. Another item I feel needs serious discussion and possible implementation is expanding the wind farm in Ellis County. Ellis County is currently in the fifth year of a 30-year contract with Buckeye Wind Energy out of Chicago. This year's payment to Ellis County in lieu of paying property taxes is $816,000.
That's time.
And I only took like 45 seconds on my other ones.
Sorry.
Okay, all right, I understand.
Thank you. Mr. Schleier, same question. How do you plan to balance the Ellis County budget? Please provide specifics on any tax increases or budget cuts.
Well, again, referring back to the spreadsheet that was compiled by County Administrator Phil, we got a big deficit facing us. I'm not a committee of one. Ellis County is governed by a board majority, so I'm not going to elaborate on line item specifics. What I do want to look at is the budget more strategically. We need to look at where do we want to be in 5, 10, or even 15 years, and the only way we can accomplish what we need to accomplish is to look at how county operations can change. If we continue county operations the same way they are and the budget process the same way it is, the taxpayers are going to be hit hard. County operations have to change to reduce expenses. I would challenge commissioners, department heads, and employees to be innovative and bring forth ideas to do things differently and better. And if we do that, we can reduce these budgets. In my health department, when I left the health department, the county made a big change. They put Kerry McHugh in charge of my health department, and he's also in charge of EMS. One department head managing two departments. That was a big change for Ellis County. And we just have to look where we can be very innovative. If we don't, this budget's just going to be a monster, and it's going to hit the taxpayers hard.
Thank you. Moving to question 4, we will start with Mr. Rohrbaugh. Given the size of Ellis County, do you think the commission should be extended to 5 people instead of 3? Why or why not?
All right, before I get to that question, I just want to finish on the wind farm because I think it's very important. One more time, Ellis County is currently in the 5th year of a 30-year contract with Buckeye Wind out of Chicago. This year's payment to Ellis County, instead of paying property taxes, is $816,000, and the yearly payments keep rising, eventually reaching over $1 million a year in the near future. So even though there's some minor negativity regarding wind farms, I say let's talk about it and see if we can use clean wind energy in Ellis County to help reduce this painful deficit. All right, now here we go, commissioners. 3 to 5. All right, in theory, I think expanding the commission from 3 to 5 commissioners is a great idea. I think it might help ensure the cities of Ellis and Victoria would have representation on the commission, which I absolutely feel that is so important to both of these communities. In reality, only 17 of Kansas' 105 counties have 5 commissioners. State statute requires a minimum of 3 commissioners per county. In visiting with County Administrator Philip Smith Haynes, he thinks expanding to 5 commissioners would be a tough go because many of the local precincts and voting wards would have to be totally restructured, and that would be a really tough thing to accomplish. In summary, I'm more than willing to discuss this issue at length with my fellow commissioners. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Schleier, given the size of Ellis County, do you think the commission should be extended to 5 people instead of 3? Why or
No,
why
I'm
not?
not in favor of extending the county commission. I had a discussion with County Administrator Sund a couple years ago about this issue. A 3-person county commission meeting is just less likely to build coalitions, 3-2 coalitions. Under the current system with 3 county commissioners are not allowed to discuss any type of business issues outside of an open meeting. They can use the county administrator as a license to feel out what others are feeling on a certain issue, but they can't discuss directly with another county commissioner. With a 5-person commission, 2 commissioners can discuss business issues. 1 commissioner can discuss that issue with another commissioner. Pretty soon you have 3-2 coalitions develop. They could develop based on politics, personality, gender. Could be a variety of reasons. I think we need to avoid that at all costs. And it has a potential to increase budget expenses. We don't need to go down that road.
Thank you. Mr. Walls, given the size of Ellis County, do you think the commission should be extended to 5 people instead of 3? Why or why not?
Okay. First of all, I have no problem working with the 3-commissioner board, but I believe the citizens of Ellis County would be better served by a 5-member commission. We would have a broader diversity of voices making decisions. By having 5, you have less quorum issues and open meeting violation issues. Possibly could have kept us out of a lawsuit earlier this year. I've worked on the city council where we had 5. It worked great. Most of the boards I've ever been on, I've never been on one that's 3. They're usually at least 5, and 5 is a very good number. Works out well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Question number 5, we will start with Mr. Schleier. Why do you want to be on the Ellis County Commission?
I wanted to be on the Ellis County Commission to make a difference. I have always been very interested in administration, which is why I applied for the job as your health administrator. Through the years, when we department heads got together and talked following an election of a new commissioner, we always shook our heads and said, well, now we have to train another one. And there's a lot of truth to that because the new commissioner usually knows little about what's going on in the county or how it works. I bring a wealth of county experience and knowledge to the position. I already know how many things are done. I don't know everything, but I know many things. I understand the budget process. I understand that some of our departments have state mandates, have to be fulfilled. I know the department heads. I understand the outside agency issue, and I believe I can make a difference. Furthermore, I've already demonstrated that I made a difference at your health department. I can make a difference as your county commissioner, too.
All right, thank you. Mr. Walls, why do you want to be on the Ellis County Commission?
Okay, I'm going to try to speak faster. I enjoy problem solving and working on issues. My law enforcement career of 33 years has been filled with investigating to find the answer. I've been on the Ellis City Council. I was on that 11 years, Ellis School Board 8 years, Ellis Recreation Commission 10 years. I am presently serving on the Ellis County Historical Society Board, and I've been K-18 Baseball Assistant State Commissioner. I've been there 16 years. I take great satisfaction on working through issues and budgets, working toward coming up with the answers. I feel my life experiences will help with looking at all the facts to come up with the best solutions. I want to give back to Ellis County that has given me so many opportunities. I've lived here all my life and love the county, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rohrbaugh, why do you want to be on the Ellis County Commission?
Okay, the thought of running for a public office has been on my radar for the last few years, especially since retiring from teaching a few years ago. Many, many times I would preach to the students in my classroom how important it was to vote and to serve your local school and community. Many times I would get a student response of, well, why don't you run for office? My usual reply would be, well, I usually get here at 7:45 in the morning. By the time I'm done coaching, it's 7 o'clock at night. I just didn't have the time in those days to pursue an office. But now I do have the time and the energy to do a great job. I would like to make Ellis County a better place to live, work, and get an education for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the audience portion of the forum. And as a reminder, if you have questions, please write them on the card and hold your card up and someone will be there to pick it up. Our first question, we will start with Mr. Walls. Does Ellis County need a county administrator?
I believe they do. Presently, we have a very good county administrator. I think it helps the commission extremely. It does the backgrounds on everything and the investigations on things, which helps the commissioners. I too think that cuts can be made to the commissioners, what they receive to help out with like when we were talking about going to a 5-person. I think we can make cuts there to achieve that. I think Phil has done a wonderful job, and I believe we do need an administrator. And
thank you. Mr. Rohrbaugh, does Ellis County need a county administrator?
I have no doubt in my mind we need a county administrator. I have no idea how the county did this before we had county administrators. It blows my mind to think how they went about it. But I've been going to the county commission meetings for the last 3 months, and to me, Philip does a great job of preparing an agenda, providing facts, and the commissioners make the yes and no decisions. So without a doubt, we need one.
Thank you. Mr. Schleier, does Ellis County need a county administrator?
Absolutely, they need a county administrator. When County Commissioner Glenn Dill was in office, he had an agenda to get a county administrator here in Ellis County. And best thing he ever done is got a county administrator in Ellis County. It could be debated whether Greg Sund was the right candidate for the first position, but when the county commission hired Philip, our current county administrator, they absolutely hit a home run. From the very first time I talked to that man, he was just something special, and you can't blow nothing by that guy. He knows it, and he knows if you're trying to work him or trying to sneak something by him. He's good, and he keeps Ellis County on track.
Thank you. Our next question, we will start with Mr. Rohrbaugh. If you could change one thing in the way county government operates, what would it be?
Well, I'd like to see a little more civility in the county commission meetings, number one. Some things going on down there, but I think we need to be more professional, and that's really what I'd like to see. Things would go a lot smoother.
Mr. Schleier, if you could change one thing in the way county government operates, what would it be?
And I'd refer back to the budget. I'd like to see the county change some of its operations. That could be a variety of things over a variety of departments, but we need to change some operations.
And Mr. Walls, if you could change one thing, what would it be?
Okay, I would like to see the county commissioners reach out more to our other communities that we have, Victoria and Ellis, and because they're part of this county, and we need to recognize them and work strongly with them. So I think that needs to be done more.
Thank you. Our next question, we will start with Mr. Schleier. How do you feel about health savings accounts for employees?
Health savings accounts do work. I never had one myself, but I know several employees did have them. I know County Administrator's son had a health savings account, and he boasted about it quite frequently. So I think for the right person, the right family, a health savings account can be very good.
Mr. Walls, how do you feel about health savings accounts for employees?
They work great. I've had one myself, and they work wonderfully. It's a good way to put money away and have it there to spend later on for your health. So, yes,
And
very much so.
Mr. Rohrbach?
Not a whole lot of debate going on here. Everything I've heard about them, it's a good thing. I've never experienced one myself, but yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about them. Sorry, I can't be.
No problem. Thank
We're
you.
getting quicker.
You are?
Yeah. Can you
Okay,
throw some of those away?
Our next question, we will start with Mr. Walls. What are some specific actions you would take to help keep and bring in a younger demographic of citizens?
How would I bring in a younger demographic of citizens? There again, we go back to promoting what we have to offer here. So many people think that we're out in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing here. We have so many good things to offer out here that we have. Like I said, the university is wonderful. And show off what we have as far as job opportunities, and but anyway, just promote our area. I think that would help. That would attract them.
Thank you. Mr. Rohrbach, what are some specific actions you would take to help keep and bring a younger demographic of
Well, I
citizens?
kind of went over this before, but I think the Grow Hayes thing that's going on Main Street, they're reaching out to the communities of Victoria and Ellis, and that's one of the things they're working on is bringing in younger people, getting them some office space, computer stuff going down there. It just looks like a really awesome thing, and I think that'll help. There's no simple answer, though.
And Mr. Schleier, what are some specific actions you would take to help keep and bring in a younger demographic of citizens?
From my perspective, it seems like the younger generation is all wrapped up in social media, so perhaps Ellis County should have more Facebook pages and try to get involved in social media more to attract that younger crowd.
All right, our next question, we will start with Mr. Rohrbach. What are your
Time about
thoughts?
it,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. What are your thoughts about reducing the 3-mile limit around Hayes?
Oh, I have a little knowledge about that working with the city. At first I thought the 3-mile thing, the city goes out and inspects. They just do the basic stuff, though. And again, it would be another expense the county would have to account for, so that'd be pretty tough. But I know the city's trying to protect their boundaries and making sure things are right as they expand, but I don't know if the county can finance that. We'd have to work with the city, and I think they can, so there's some solutions down the road.
Thank you. And Mr. Schleier, what are your thoughts about reducing the 3-mile limit around Hayes?
I'm okay with it unless I could be convinced otherwise. I'm open to debate about it.
And Mr. Walls?
Likewise, I'm open to debate on it. I think what we have now is work fine. I know the city of Ellis, they go out and do some inspecting, and city of Hayes does, so I'm fine with it.
Okay, our next question, we will begin with Mr. Schleier. Would you be open to leaving one of the 3 county commission positions to be not for a Hayes person, but a person from Ellis or Victoria?
I had that discussion with County Administrator Phil, and he said that under the current system, one could not do that. It has to be by district, and the districts are by population. So I don't know if we're allowed to do that, just have someone from Ellis, someone from Victoria, and someone from Hayes. It has to be by districts.
And Mr. Walls?
That is correct. It has to be by district, so I can't do it at this point.
Mr. Rohrabaugh?
You know, I really thought when you shot that 3 to 5 expansion of commissioners, originally I thought that was a great idea. Why not just divide the county up 5 districts? I know it has to be equal population-wise, and let's start over there at Trigo County and count Ellis's 2,000 residents and come into Hayes and get that 5,000 or whatever it takes to make a district. I thought that'd be a great idea. And same way working from the east with Victoria. I really wish there was some way that Victoria and Ellis could be included, but I guess it's not so simple after talking to Philip about it, but I wouldn't give up on it. I think it's important that Victoria and Ellis have a voice on the county commission. I think it's really important. I guess that's why John and I are running, for one thing. Uh-oh.
Here we are.
Do I have to leave now? Okay.
I won't do any rebuttal.
Sorry about that.
We may have one more question, just a minute.
God.
Okay.
Okay, we will begin with Mr. Walls. What is your stance on transportation, stopping sales tax transfers from KDOT to general fund, and future funding for transportation in the future?
Okay, can I have that question? Look at
Let's
it.
go to the next question.
What is your stance on transportation, stopping sales tax transfers from KDOT to the general fund, and future funding for transportation?
Okay, we need all the funding we can get is my answer to that. I can't see anything should be cut, but it has been. I know it has been. I believe it should be left in place, if I understood that right.
Okay, and Mr. Rohrabaugh?
How about that question one more time?
What is your stance on transportation, stopping sales tax transfers from KDOT to the general fund, and future funding for transportation?
Well, I'd have to do a little research on that, obviously, but I don't know what that amounts to. I don't know how much we're getting. I mean, we are actually getting sales tax. I didn't know that, but I know KDOT's been hit really, really hard in the last 4 years, so I'd be a little leery about robbing them any more than we had to. That's it for me.
And Mr. Schleier?
Several years ago, I had a lot of conversations with Treasurer Mickey Billiner about such issues, and he indicated to me that revenue sharing with the state had all but dried up. So if we are getting any revenue from the state, I would want to keep it. I wouldn't want to give it back or have it decrease.
Okay, and our next question, we will start with Mr. Rohrabaugh. What are your opinions on sharing revenue from the wind farms with schools?
Oh, thank you for that question. There's only 2 wind farms in the state of Kansas that did not share revenue with the public school districts. And if we can expand to stage 2 somehow, wind farm, I think we definitely need to include the schools, definitely, without a doubt. They live and die on the property tax just like the county does. And I was really astounded when I had heard that this wind farm in Ellis County did not include the 3 public school districts in Ellis County. It's harder than heck for Hayes to pass a school bond issue. Ellis can't pass one. Victoria has had a little bit of luck. But yeah, I definitely think we need to look into that and share some of that money with the public school districts. I really do.
All right, Mr. Schleier, what are your opinions on sharing revenue from the wind farms with schools?
At this point in time, I'm against it. Again, we have about a $9 million deficit facing us in 5 years. We need all the revenue sources we can get. And If we could clear up that situation, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but at this time, we need all the revenue sources the county can get.
And Mr. Walls, what are your opinions on sharing revenue from the wind farms with schools?
Again, we definitely need the money in the county also, but being real pro schools, we need to share some of that. I know Sperrville, that's just been a wonderful thing down there. They got a new gymnasium, from what I understood from the wind farm. Their computer systems are all paid for, and that's an asset that Kansas has. The schools, and we provide a good education, and we need to try to fund them however we can. So I would be willing to share.
Okay, thank you. We will be moving now to our closing statements. We will start with Mr. Schleier. You have 2 minutes.
I worked for the county for 23 years at the department head level. I worked for 2 county administrators. I got along with each of them. I worked for 16 different county commissioners. I compiled 23 health department budgets. I can bring to the commission a different perspective due to my experience. I have a firm grasp on the roles and responsibilities of a county commissioner. I have a genuine understanding of department heads and the internal and external pressures that affect them as they try to provide services, knowing that many of these departments are extensions of state government. I have a sound knowledge of county government, the diversity of departments and agencies, the programs, the services we offer, the appointed department heads versus the elected department heads, state mandates we're under. I'm familiar with the budget process. I know many department heads personally, and I can respect and trust their professional judgment. I have a heartfelt concern for the long-term future of Ellis County. And if I'm elected county commissioner, I'm not going to be a county commissioner that tries to make everyone happy. Every time an issue is discussed and an issue is decided, some people are upset. I'm okay with that. I'm not going to try to make everyone happy. And I will never exercise authority and reject the responsibility. I won't blame others for any decisions I make.
Thank you. Mr. Walls, you have 2 minutes.
Okay. I believe voters of Ellis County are presented with a good problem here. We have, in my opinion, 3 fine candidates. Like I said, Chris was my oldest son's coach and taught my kids. Butch was my beer man, and both of them have been friends for years, so can't be better than that. So I will not give promises I cannot keep. The only promise I will give is to do my homework on all issues, be honest, fair, approachable, and a good listener. We must all show respect for everyone's opinions. Over the years, I have found the best ideas have come from the people I serve. Collect the facts and make informed decisions. No matter who you're voting for, please get out and exercise your right to vote. Your vote matters. I want to be your Ellis County Commissioner, like that commercial for the jewelers. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Mr. Rohrbaugh, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, in closing, I'd like to thank Connor Mountford for his time and effort in putting this debate together. Thank you, Connor. And thanks to all of you in the audience and to Fort Hays State University for sparking interest locally in this year's election. I'm guessing voter turnout this year throughout Kansas might be a little higher than normal for an off-year election. Whether you like Donald Trump or not, he has motivated more people to get out and vote, and that should be a good thing. I'm pretty sure I'm going to vote this year. And I encourage all of you to do the same. And by the way, I would really appreciate your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the Ellis County Commission Forum. We will take a 10-minute intermission before starting the next candidate forum.
Thank you.
Okay, buddy, good job.
let's get started. All right, if you could take your seats, please. We'll start with the second half of this debate here. This is for the 111th District of the Kansas House.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Fort Hays State University Candidate Forum. Tonight we'll have candidates from the 111th District State House race. Our moderators for the evening will be Dr. Jay Steinmetz and Dr. Wendy Roletter-Sook. Thank you.
All right, hello everybody. I'm Dr. Jay Steinmetz. I'm going to run by some of the format for this debate here. This is a repeat from last time, but for those who are new, we're going to have opening and closing statements for each candidate. Each candidate is allotted 2 minutes for an opening and closing statement. The candidates will be given a warning when 20 seconds remain on the clock and must finish their remarks. The question format, again, each candidate is allotted 2 minutes to answer each question and will receive a 20-second warning to finish their remarks. The question order will move from left to right if one were facing the stage and will operate in a rotating fashion, with each candidate having an opportunity to answer each question. A rebuttal process. If the candidate mentions another candidate by name, then that candidate is entitled to a 1-minute rebuttal. Again, a 20-second warning will be issued. However, we encourage all candidates to remain civil in their responses. A timer. In addition to the moderator, speaking time will be recorded using an electronic timer placed at the front of the stage facing the candidates. Candidates, I guess that's not actually happening. I will just give you the warning. I will give you a 20-second warning when you have 20 seconds left. The candidates will be asked questions pertinent to the office for which they are running. These include 5 questions predetermined by the Forum Planning Committee. Following these 5 questions, the floor is open for audience members to ask questions to the candidates directly. So let's move to the opening statements here, and I'm going to begin with Eber Phelps.
Well, thank you very much, and also thank you to the SGA for putting on this event. I know we wanted to have a debate earlier at Smoky Hills Public Television, but it wasn't able to be worked out scheduling-wise. So this is really a great opportunity, and thank you for all coming out here tonight. Very nice turnout, and especially a great turnout for the County Commission candidates as well. I thoroughly enjoyed hearing what their views are on county government. At any rate, as mentioned, my name is Eber Phelps. I'm currently your state representative in Topeka, representing the 111th District. I served in the legislature from 1997 until 2012, and then I was term limited out and remained out of the legislature for 4 years. Had no intention of coming back into the legislature. I was thoroughly enjoying my experience in city government, but the tax experiment that Governor Brownback did, although well-intentioned, obviously had opposite results than what it was intended. We didn't see any job growth, and also our revenues stream really tanked out big time. So it was at that point, after about 4 years, I kind of got the urge to try to go back to Topeka and be part of the solution. And so I did seek re-election in 2016 and was successful. Talk about going to being part of this solution is really a very rewarding 2 years in the legislature. I kind of characterize the past 2 years in legislature with the 3 C's.
20
we
seconds.
had a lot of communication, we had a lot of cooperation, and we had a lot of collaboration. You can put those in any order you want. But the fact of the matter is, when I got to Topeka for the 2017 session, you could just tell that there was a lot of new people there that came there and wanted to fix things. Even when I went door to door, I could tell that people were aware that something was awry in Topeka and needed fixing.
Okay,
I was
time.
glad to be part of the solution.
Thank you. And Barbara Wassinger.
I'm Barbara Wassinger. I have a liberal arts degree from the University of St. Catherine in St. Paul, Minnesota. I served as a former city commissioner for 8 years, and I'm currently a county commissioner for 6 years. I'm married to my husband for 38 years. We have 4 children, a son-in-law, daughter-in-law, and sorry everyone, a perfect grandson. And we've lived in Hayes for 35 years. We own Ellis County Abstract and Title, and I'm proud to be a person that lives in Ellis County. And I'd love to continue to serve Ellis County as a state legislator.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let's move to the 5 questions here. We'll begin with Barbara Wassinger. Question 1, what is the most pressing issue the state is facing right now?
I think clearly for the state and as well as the county, the biggest issue is the budget. We need to stop taking money from KDOT and CAPERS. We need to start a repayment plan on that. We need to stop speculative spending and start living within the actual revenue figures that the state has. A common sense approach to spending taxpayer dollars is always important, and more government isn't always the answer.
Okay, thank you very much. And for Eber Phelps, same question. What is the most pressing issue the state is facing right now?
Over the years, whenever I was returning to session in Topeka, a lot of the times the question would come up, what are the 3 main issues you're going to be facing? And I used to always respond to that by saying, the budget, the budget, the budget. Everything revolves around the budget because without the money, you're not going to be able to, fund programs, agencies, whatever the case may be. So that goes to, the current times where we got back on track, got some fiscal responsibility restored in Topeka. And so as we enter this 2019 session, obviously the focus is on the budget. We need to, once again, practice the fiscal responsibility that we did the last 2 years and also keep up with our funding of schools. We have the Gannon court case right now. And last session, the legislature did, send a funding package to the Supreme Court, which I'm very confident it's going to take. They're going to approve of that for the 2019 and 2020. We do have to add some additional money for some of the growth that's taken place. So as we look at our budget, we also have to deal with the double debt that the state has incurred. We started addressing a lot of that last session, but I think we've got to use that fiscal responsibility as we look at our budget going into this next year. I'm on the Appropriations Committee, and so we get regular updates on our revenue packages that are coming in, or revenue stream that's coming in, and so we will be looking at definitely putting together a budget that's responsible.
Okay, thank you very much. The second question will begin here with Eber Phelps. The question is, how do you plan to promote economic development within the state and make Kansas an attractive destination for businesses?
Well, as I mentioned, the Governor Brownback's plan was intended to enhance economic development in our state. Unfortunately, it kind of was the opposite. A lot of companies did not relocate here as anticipated. We didn't have any really growth in our economy. And especially in job growth. We have now incurred 15 straight months of increased revenues over the estimates by the Consensus Estimating Group. And so that puts us on pretty solid footing. When it comes to economic development, I think the first thing we need to do, as mentioned before, is address that budget and show some fiscal responsibility and get ourselves on sound footing. I look at funding education as economic development. Right here in Ellis County, when you take the Fort Hays State University, USD 49, Hayes Academy of Hair Design, NCK, you're looking at post-secondary education as well as K-12. We have 2,500 people employed. That is an industry that employs 2,500 people that are paying wages, they're paying taxes, they're buying homes, they're buying cars and so forth. So that really adds to our economic development here in the community. Our medical center out here, if we can get the Medicaid expansion, we'd be looking at another boost to our economic development efforts. Right south of town here, we have the K-State Ag Research Center. What do we have out in western Kansas? Agriculture. This Ag Research Center out here is responsible for the increased crop productions and the advancements in technology and agriculture that we've seen over the years. And so for
20
this
seconds.
area alone, we need to really invest in that.
Okay, thank you very much. And for Barbara Wassinger, same question. How do you plan to promote economic development within the state and make Kansas an attractive destination for businesses?
This is a complex answer, and it revolves around a lot of things. We have a low unemployment rate statewide of 3.4%, and we need to deal with those workforce issues, promotion of quality of life issues, and housing issues, or lack thereof. We need to think outside the box in order to solve these problems, just like Osborne did, where they built houses for companies coming into Osborne with the help of grants and local businesses and banks. We need to keep from putting on any new taxes on individuals or businesses, and we need to remove some burdensome regulations for small businesses to make it easier for them to get into the marketplace.
Okay, thank you very much. And now the third question here, Barbara Wassinger first. Should Kansas expand Medicaid, and should recipients be required to meet work requirements similar to those required under the TANF plan? Why or why not?
We should repair CanCare as it is now, because that's a broken system that needs to be fixed before we expand Medicaid. Work requirements are essential to any expansion that would also ease the unemployment issues within the state. Currently, the cost to expand Medicaid, with a small estimate of adding 150,000 people, is $56 million. And that's assuming that the federal government continues to reimburse at 90%. And I highly doubt that they'll continue that high rate of reimbursement.
Okay, thank you. Same question for Eber Phelps. Should Kansas expand Medicaid, and should recipients be required to meet work requirements similar to those required under TANF? Why or why not?
Well, absolutely, we should expand Medicaid expansion. I have actually voted on that a number of times in the legislature. If many of you recall, 2017 session, we passed it in the House, we passed it in the Senate. And unfortunately, Governor Brownback vetoed that bill. We come up about 3 votes short of actually expanding Medicaid in our state. What we've done by not expanding Medicaid, over the years since Sandy Prager was our insurance commissioner and set up the insurance exchanges, we forfeited $2.9 billion. Now, that is money that we forfeited, could have been coming in our state. We probably wouldn't even have this lawsuit with over school funding. We probably wouldn't have a lot of issues with our budget in the state of Kansas. We'd had a lot of money to work with. Wouldn't have been taking money from the highway plan, actually going out and built infrastructure. So what we're looking at in the United States right now is, I believe 34 states have expanded their Medicaid program. And all the negative things about expanding it, that we don't know what the feds are going to do, we don't know how we're going to sustain it, paying for it and all that. There is living proof. The state of Michigan and several others have shown that the amount of money that they are getting now because of the Medicaid expansion, they're able to pay for that state 10% commitment. So I don't buy into the fact that we can't sustain it and that it's too expensive. The fact of the matter is, I also look at it as economic development, just like I do education. So when you look at $2.9 billion that we forfeited, just think what that would have done to our budget.
Just to be clear, I'm saying 20 seconds. So you still have 20 seconds when I say 20 seconds.
I repeat, I am in favor of Medicaid expansion. Using all my time.
All right, thank you very much. And now for the fourth question. This, again, Eber Phelps will begin. What would be your plan to make sure the state adequately funds public education?
Well, actually, the state was remiss over the years of not funding. The high water mark for base state aid per pupil was back in 2009, when probably one of the major bipartisan efforts took place in the legislature in funding education at a level that saw our students excelling. When I first went in the legislature, I was able to brag about the state of Kansas, education-wise, our outcomes. We're the top 5% in NAEP reading scores, SAT scores, ACT scores, and student performance levels across the board. So what we did this last session was, as a result of repealing the Brownback plan, was we were able to send a funding package of, I think, $525 million over to the Supreme Court. We have not heard their response to that, but as I mentioned earlier in my remarks, I think they're going to go with it, and maybe tell the legislature needs to do a little bit more work. I feel that there's funding now for the next couple of years, and obviously as we see our increased revenues, we are able to add those additional dollars down the road, out-year spending, in other words, where we will have adequate spending. Right now, our teachers in the state of Kansas have moved up in pay scale nationally from number 42 to number 40. And so when people are wondering why we have young teachers leaving the state of Kansas for Oregon, Washington, or Nebraska, for instance, they're being offered bonuses to sign and
20
so
seconds.
forth. So we are, I think, in a position right now where we can start attracting those young people to stay here and teach.
Okay, thank you very much. And now the same question for Barbara Wassinger. What would be your plan to make sure the state adequately funds public education?
The legislature has increased school funding by over $500 million, which is about 10% of what they did before. This just shows how vital it is to make sure that it goes to classrooms and teachers. Teacher salaries, not to mention where money has gone in the past, in this past year, like Shawnee raised their administrator's salary by 13%. Russell built a $1.5 million sports complex. I would like to see more accountability for additional funding. If adequate means raising reading comprehension, test scores, and raising teacher salaries, then I'm in.
Okay, thank you very much. And now for the fifth and final question of this phase of the debate. We'll begin with Barbara Wassinger.
Okay.
Why do you want to be the 111th District Representative?
My goal has always been to make Kansas a place where my children and the future generation want to live, work, thrive, and be proud of. I've always sought to repay my community for all that it's given to me and my family. I've served my community as parish council president, school volunteer, Hays City Commissioner, County Commissioner. I want to continue to serve Kansas and make it a place where we want to live and more people want to come to live as your state representative.
Okay, thank you. And now for Eber Phelps, the same question. Why do you want to be the 111th District Representative?
Well, thank you very much. One of the things that I've been telling people, and it's why I even filed to run again, is that we had some great accomplishments. We had a lot of, I said, collaborative spirit in the legislature the last 2 years and moved our state forward. So I want to continue that work because it's not done yet. We got our state back on a sound financial footing. We are moving forward. We've seen, after we repealed the Brownback experiment, we had a bond upgrade the very next day. So we're putting more money into schools. We're putting more money into our mental health programs. We have money going towards our, paying down bonds, which in a sense is saving. So we need to continue doing that kind of a practice as we move forward here into the 2019 session. And so I want to be part of that because we had a great camaraderie in the legislature, and I think that we are moving forward and we can't go backwards. We can't go back to any kind of a Brownback style tax program, which is very unfair to the average Kansan. And I think that if we get a lot of the people back that were there before, that are there to get something done and move our state forward, I think it'll be very positive for our state and have very positive results. And I think that I've already shown that I'm part of that. I was one out of, I I was joined by 85 other legislators in overriding the Brownback veto of the tax bill. So there was 40 Democrats in the House, 46 Republicans. We joined together not only on that bill, but on Medicaid expansion and many others.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we'll move to the questions from the audience, and we have quite a stack here. The first question, and we'll begin with Eber Phelps. What is your stance on transportation, stopping sales tax transfers from KDOT to the general fund, and future funding for transportation?
Well, that was part of the result, I think, of repealing the Brownback experiment, was the fact that we are able now to, at the end of the year here, see some of the enhancement as well as the maintenance programs done. I've voted for 2 comprehensive transportation plans in my tenure in the legislature, and I look at that as a tremendous economic incentive for our state. We have various locales, especially southwest Kansas, that totally depends on transportation. And to me, that was one of my suggestions for economic development in our state, is instead of borrowing money from the comprehensive plan, actually build things, put people to work. And whenever you have a transportation project, whether it be near Belleville, Kansas, or Scott City, there's an infusion of money into those local communities, because every day those highway construction workers and those contractors, they're going to that community, going to the parts store, they're going to the restaurants, the hotels, and so forth. It may be just a short infusion of money, but it definitely helps those communities, and it also puts people back to work.
Okay, thank you. And the same question here for Barbara Wassinger. What is your stance on transportation, stopping sales tax transfers from KDOT to the general fund, and future funding for transportation?
I've already said that we need to stop taking money from KDOT and CAPERS. Our responsibility as a government is to take care of our employees. That includes funding their retirement programs and taking care of our roads. The first job of a government is to provide security and safety for their residents and take care of their residents. And if you can't get a police officer to a person's house or anywhere, a fire truck, because the roads aren't good, then you're not doing your job. So we need to stop taking money from them and start funding it again.
Okay, thank you very much. And now this next question here, Barbara Wassinger first. A topic of this campaign has been term limits. I am interested in the reason for either position. I assume asking what your position is on term limits.
My opinion on term limits is that it's absolutely necessary. I imposed a term limit on myself with the City Commission, and I would not serve any more than 8 years as a county commissioner. I've had a poll going out, and I would say 99% of the people who have returned that have said that they want term limits. I think, and it's really not as funny, but term limits are for politicians being there too long are a little bit like leftovers. Sometimes it's time to get them changed, clean it out. So.
Thank you. And now the same question for Eber Phelps. A topic of this campaign has been term limits. I am interested in the reason for either position.
I have not heard anything about term limits as I go door to door, or even in the legislature since probably back in, I don't know, the early 2000s. Back then, somebody brought a bill for term limits, and the research showed that in the previous 10 years, there had been 400 people serving the Kansas legislature. So looking back on that, I just checked the other day with legislative research, and in the last 9 years, we've had 359 different people serving the legislature. So we have term limits. It's called an election. I stand before the people in this community or in this district every 2 years and let them make the decision. All over the state of Kansas, we have legislators doing that, and we have congressmen doing that. Standing before the people. I'm very proud of my record. I have nothing to hide, and I'm not ashamed of the fact that I just am in my 18th year in the legislature, and I feel that these last 2 years we've made some great progress. Back in the old days, we had that camaraderie back in the legislature, and I'm seeing it again, and I think we can get a lot done. term limits. Check the states that have done that. Missouri, a few years back, did term limits. It was an absolute disaster because they moved so many people out with institutional memory, historical memory, and so forth, and the lobbyists had a feeding frenzy. They came in there and pretty much ran the show. And so you got to be careful. It's one of those things, be careful what you wish for, you might get it, because right now we have a ton of new people in the legislature and not a lot of people there with experience. And as I mentioned, I'll stand before the people.
20
You're
seconds.
the ones that determine the term limits.
Okay, thank you. And now the next question here, Eber Phelps first. As a physician, I care deeply about CanCare expansion. It is a financially sound decision for my rural hospital. The Kansas Hospital Association and the Kansas Family Physicians Group support this. Do you support expansion? And if you don't, what would you do to get more people insured?
Oh, absolutely. As I mentioned in the earlier remarks, that I do support Medicaid expansion. I had the opportunity to meet with a number of hospital administrators in Northwest Kansas at Hayes Medical Center a few months back. We had people there from Rooks County, Norton, Phillips, Trigo-Lemke, and Walkeny, and I believe Thomas County and Sharon Springs. And they all, favored Medicaid expansion. Right now, we just had a hospital close, as many of you know. Fort Scott closed a hospital. A community of 8,000 does not have a hospital after this month, and they will have to drive. Somebody goes into labor, they have to drive 30 miles. Right now, we have 26 of your critical care hospitals are in danger right now, and I think a lot of them, I'm not positive, but I'm sure a lot of them are just hanging on to see if we're going to finally pass Medicaid expansion in this state. Wherever you're at, I don't care what your zip code is, how rural you are, you deserve the same kind of medical care that's available to all of us right here with Hayes Medical Center. And subsequently, we're putting a lot of people in jeopardy. Earlier, Independence closed their hospital, and they had to outfit a new ambulance because they only had one ambulance. If an ambulance takes somebody to Coffeyville, they have to have somebody there for emergency care. So it is a critical thing that we do this and make sure we keep these rural hospitals open. I know a lot of us are concerned about rural schools. Well, I'm also concerned about health care for the rural areas of the state.
Okay, thank you. And now the same question for Barbara Wassinger. As a physician, I care deeply about CanCare expansion. It is a financially sound decision for my rural hospital. The Kansas Hospital Association and the Kansas Family Physicians Group support this. Do you support expansion? And if you don't, what would you do to get more people insured?
I think I already answered that question when I said I think we need to look at our medical system. CanCare needs to be repaired, and then we can expand that. It is talking to people. You know that there are problems with CanCare right now. It's important that we take care of the patient. They have their choice of where they get service and their doctors, and we need to take care of all Kansans. So I think we need to really look into how we deliver health care right now.
Okay, thank you. And now for the next question, Barbara Wassinger first.
Okay.
Please share your stance on teacher rights, both collective bargaining and due process for public educators.
Is the question more that you want the state to take over collective bargaining and tenure? I think local decisions are better for each individual district to make those decisions. And so I have no problem with collective bargaining, and I really believe that we need to maintain control of teachers and not collective bargaining, but we need to keep the control within our local area.
Okay, thank you. And the same question for Eber Phelps. Please share your stance on teacher rights, both collective bargaining and due process for public educators.
Thank you. I support both of those. When we look at our educational system this day and age and what's required of teachers compared to when many of us were going to school, it's a lot different situation out there. We are having teachers, responsible for developing our young people that are entering the elementary grades. And so I think they deserve the respect and the opportunity for a fair, treatment, and also to look after, what their compensation is. As I mentioned, our teachers in the state of Kansas right now rank 40th in the country. Most teachers will tell you they're not in it for the money, but at the same time, we've seen their responsibilities grow and grow, where they are actually doing a lot of things besides teaching, the classroom curriculum. They're seeing the signs of abused children that are being neglected, children that are malnourished, and so forth. So they have quite a bit of responsibility there. And I think when we're entrusting them to take care of our children, they need to be compensated at a level that's competitive with the states around us, and they also need to be treated fairly. So everything centers around so many legal issues nowadays that you can have a situation where there's an unfair situation that a teacher finds herself or himself in, and I think they need to have that due process available to them.
Okay, thank you very much. And now for the next question, Eber Phelps first. What will you support regarding guns in schools? A couple of different issues: arming teachers, concealed carry, gun-free zones, both on college campuses and in K through 12 education.
Well, we have in my travels and visiting with school administrators as well as classroom teachers, I have not seen any support for arming teachers. I know I read things where some teachers feel that they would like to be able to have a concealed carry in that classroom, but for the most part, in listening to educators, it's not something they want to deal with. They want to deal with taking care of the kids, educating them, developing them, nurturing their personalities, and so forth. Years ago, I voted in favor of concealed carry in the state of Kansas, but here recently, I am not in favor of concealed gun carry on college campuses or in schools. We have a number of law enforcement that have had input when they testified on that in Topeka, and most of your college presidents are not in favor. General Meyer, the president of Kansas State University, retired four-star general. I'm sure he's had control of weapons of mass destruction, and I'm sure he's had a lot of small arms training. And he was one of the very outspoken opponents of concealed gun carry on campuses, just by the nature of the population there and all the trials and tribulations that they're going through.
Okay, thank you. And now the same question for Barbara Wassinger. What will you support regarding guns in schools, a multifaceted issue both in college campuses, K through 12, public education, issues of arming teachers, concealed carry, gun-free zones?
I'm not in favor of arming teachers. I think the gun rights of all individuals are important, and if they want to have concealed carry, I don't think that's a problem either on college campuses or wherever you are. It's our right. Guns are not the problem. The problem within our community is with the mental health system. We need to be treating people with mental health issues because they're the ones that are abusing things. When you ban guns everywhere, the people that have the guns are the criminals and people that aren't trained with guns. So I think we should not force teachers to be armed. They can make their own choice if they are concealed carried registered gun owners and trained.
Okay, thank you very much. And now here for the next question, Barbara Wassinger first. What are your thoughts regarding licensing home inspectors to protect the public interest?
I've heard a lot about this, and I think we should have them bonded at the very least so that they can stand behind their inspections for each home. The bigger problem is that we have an issue with getting trained home inspectors and appraisers. We need to revisit that and make it easier for people to be trained and be doing the job.
Okay, thank you. And now the same question for Eber Phelps. What are your thoughts regarding licensing home inspectors to protect the public interest?
I support that, in principle. I think it's probably a good idea. I just retired last November after working for a building mechanical contractor for 21 years, and so went to a number of homes that had just recently been purchased where the system, heating, ventilation, air conditioning system had failed, and they were, I was told that the house passed inspection and so forth. So I believe that in order to do that and make it effective, there's probably we probably have to, focus a little bit on the training that's going into that. Obviously, somebody goes in and turns on the air conditioner, it works. You have to have somebody skilled with the skill sets to actually further examine that. So licensure would probably, bring about the best of the best to do that type of work and kind of get rid of the people that are, like the words, fly by night.
Okay, thank you very much. And now here's the next question. Eber Phelps first. Since the Supreme Court has given approval for states to collect sales taxes from internet sales, will you support implementing a tax on internet sales?
Well, absolutely. That's a fairness issue. That's been around since I think I first entered the legislature. All you need to do is go talk to your local businesses that are, dealing with customers one-on-one, explaining the product and so forth, only to have that person go out and order it off the internet, and not only order it off the internet but not pay sales tax. So looking at it from that standpoint, if Goodwin Sporting Goods store down here sells a pair of Nikes or Reeboks or whatever the case may be, they're charging the sales tax. They are a tax collecting agency for the state, and in the meantime somebody can go and order it offline, and online I should say, and then not have to pay that sales tax. So I'm for the local businesses, and I think that it's a fairness issue, and I will support the implementation thereof.
Okay, thank you. And the same question for Barbara Wassinger. Since the Supreme Court has given approval for states to collect sales taxes from internet sales, will you support implementing a tax on internet sales?
The way the world buys things now has changed. A lot of it is online. We can't stop that. And I think that everyone needs to be treated the same. Everyone should be collecting sales tax. So I'm for that.
Okay, thank you very much. And now for the next question, Barbara Wassinger first. What are your thoughts about the current negative mood towards the media?
My first thought is to say no comment. I think what dismays me the most is the change of culture where we feel we can be attacking negatively anyone that doesn't believe the same things that we do. That people can make up things and it's being printed and you have no recourse. I think it's a matter of civility, common respect, common courtesy that we need to be taking care of, and that includes newspapers, TVs, radio, and politics.
Okay, thank you very much. And the same question for Eber Phelps. What are your thoughts about the current negative mood towards the media?
Well, I'm not in agreement with it. I think that what I've seen over the years is, especially locally here, I think you build up a relationship with the people that represent the media. And it's not that you have to be interviewed by them every time you talk to them. Sometimes it just pays to visit and see how they're doing. Likewise, in the state capitol, we have a media corps there that I think are very respectable people. They do their homework, they do their research. What we're looking at here, I think, is outside of our area. We're looking at the national media, and obviously there's a negative outlook, whether it be for Fox News or MSN.com, or MSNBC, I should say. But myself, I think that they're doing their job, and if I'm respectful to them, they're going to be respectful to me. You can actually put this into any profession. I'm respectful to law enforcement. Some people are rude to them. Some people are disrespectful to teachers, and I tend to respect them. So I think it's just something that we all just need to practice and take care of our own house. Our community does a great job of that.
Okay, thank you. Here's the next question, and Eber Phelps first. Two-part question. if you could serve on a committee of your choice in Topeka, which would it be and why? The second question, would you be in favor of a constitutional amendment to get the Supreme Court out of education?
That's a two-part question. Do I get 4 minutes? Well, right now, I think I am serving on the committee that I hadn't really thought about in my early years. I served for about 12 or 14 years, I guess, on the House Education Committee, but the last 2 years I've been on the Appropriations Committee. Super interesting committee. I've learned, I thought I knew a lot about state government, but obviously that's been a kind of a master's degree in state government. It's been very interesting, very professional people coming in and testifying. As far as the Supreme Court issue here, I do not support a constitutional amendment. I'm tired of people vilifying the Supreme Court and labeling them as the bad guys. The Supreme Court is an appellate court. They're not the ones that just decide to come over and mess with the legislature and say, hey, let's go over and take over that school finance. They're doing their job. That lawsuit was filed in Shawnee County District Court, and the state appealed it, and so they knew it was going to be a long, drawn-out affair, so they skipped the actual appellate court and went right to the Supreme Court. So these folks are some of the smartest and brightest people in our state, and the way they are being vilified and have to just sit there and take it, they can't go do interviews and so forth. I totally respect the three branches of government, and I think when you start having a executive branch trying to take over the legislative branch and the judicial branch, you're going to get yourself into real problems. We should be equal branches of government. They're doing their job. They're not the bad guys. The legislature didn't do its job, and now we are. So let's all cool our jets and let everybody do their job.
Okay, thank you. And now the same question for Barbara Wassinger, two-part. If you could serve on a committee of your choice in Topeka, which one would it be and why? And the second question, would you be in favor of a constitutional amendment to get the Supreme Court out of education?
I don't think the discussion of a constitutional amendment is even on the table right now. I think the most important thing is to determine what exactly is adequate funding for our schools. And I think, like I said before, I think it's raising teacher salaries and putting it in the classrooms. What I'd like to do is also I guess it would be appropriations as well. I would like to be involved in the day-to-day and understand more, and I think it would be a great place to be able to learn about the state government and also relate it back to our local people.
Okay, thank you very much. And now for our next question here, Barbara Wassinger first. Recent local headlines have more than implied local elected officials believe a conspiracy is present in local politics. What, if any, evidence have you seen in support of this, and what role does a legislator hold in addressing allegations from other elected officials?
I don't think there's any conspiracy. I think there are communication issues. There are misunderstandings that we need to get cleared up, and I think that will happen shortly and will come out into the public. So I don't think the legislators should be stepping into local politics. I think they can take care of it themselves, and if it needs to go any farther, the Sheriff's Department will take care of that.
Okay, thank you very much. And the same question here for Eber Phelps. Recent local headlines have more than implied local elected officials believe a conspiracy is present in local politics. What, if any, evidence have you seen in support of this, and what role does a legislator hold in addressing allegations from other elected officials?
Worst conspiracy I've ever seen in my life. Just kidding. Actually, my policy as an elected official, whether it be in city government or the state legislature, I really chose never to, comment on the budget process of, one city or one school board or the county commission. They're elected, they have their job to do, and they know what they need to do. If they're not doing it, the voters will take care of that. Likewise, I will agree that the fact of the matter is, I really cringe when the state starts kind of dabbling in local government. One of the worst things you can see happen in the state legislature is somebody goes to the microphone and starts talking about how much they support local control. Moments later, they are introducing something that is going to take away local control. So I've been true to my word, I believe, in letting the county commission take care of their things. While I was serving in city government, I tried to take care of our own nest, so to speak, and that's where I'm at on that. I have no idea what's going on in the, with our county commission and whatever controversy there is. I've been focused on state issues right now. We've got a lot going on, in preparing not only for this debate but also for the next session. So let the local governments handle their own issues.
Okay, thank you very much. And now for a new question here, and Eber Phelps will go first. Chris Kobach has laid out a plan to address the state budget by lowering taxes to attract business development in Kansas. Do you support his plan?
I do not. Actually, that's what got us into trouble. He wants to go back, at least the way I understand it. The Secretary of State wants to, if elected governor, wants to go back and pretty much do an identical plan that Governor Brownback had. We've all seen how disastrous that was. You have no idea how close the state was to bankruptcy. We saw about 2 or 3 bond downgradings and so forth. The debt was doubled. We cut education. We cut higher education. Fortunately, we were able to restore some of that. What I would propose is I'm more inclined to look at, with increased revenues, for once and for all addressing sales tax on food. Many of you know we're probably one of the highest in the country. And that is a tax cut, I believe, that would affect everybody in this room, everybody in this district, and everybody in this state, as opposed to going and doing a similar thing that Governor Brownback did, which benefited a few and harmed many.
Okay, thank you. And the same question for Barbara Wassinger. Chris Kobach has laid out a plan, Kobach, candidate for governor, has laid out a plan to address the state budget by lowering taxes to attract business development in Kansas. Do you support his plan?
I don't support anything being done with taxes at this time, certainly not raising of taxes. I think the biggest thing we need to concentrate on is the regulations that we've imposed upon businesses that make it less attractive to locate and work in Kansas. And I think that's where we need to be concentrating, and that's the best thing to do.
Okay, thank you very much. And now for a new question here, Barbara Wassinger first. Please discuss your views on providing mental health services in schools.
I believe firmly that we need to be taking care of the mental health of our youth. Our jails are full of people who did not get mental health care as they were younger. And if we help maintain the health of our young people, they won't end up in the jails. They won't end up causing having the problems that they have now if we address it early on. So I think it's important that we supply some mental health in schools.
Okay, thank you. And the same question for Eber Phelps. Please discuss your views on providing mental health services in schools.
Well, I think it's imperative that we do. Back when Governor Brownback was elected to his second term in his State of the State address, he did propose adding 400, I believe it was, school counselors in the state of Kansas. Now, that seems like a lot, but you also got to realize we have 285 school districts, and just the Wichita School District alone has 100 schools. So we have school psychologists, school counselors really doubling up and covering a number of schools. And all we have to do is look at some of the incidents that have been happening in our communities. One of the things that really is alarming is as the state has cut funding to your community mental health centers, what's happened as a result of that is your county sheriff's department have now become your mental health provider. Right here, I toured the Ellis County Jail several months back, and there was 40-some people incarcerated, and there was probably, in their kind of infirmary area, I guess you could call it, there was about 28 medical dosages, medicine dosages that were going to be doled out. And I dare say that I'll bet you, with HIPAA regulations, I couldn't find out exactly what those medicines were for, but I would venture to say a lot of them are some level of mental illness. Right now, the number one provider of mental health care in the United States is Cook County Jail in Chicago. They incarcerate about 2,500 people, and they figure that at least 50% of those folks that are incarcerated have some level of mental illness, whether it be depression or schizophrenia or whatever the case may be. People are ill. They need to be in treatment. So as we cut community mental health centers, Orange State Hospital and stuff, that's the result. And it's affecting our schools, and we need to fund it.
Okay, thank you. And now for another question here, Eber Phelps first. How will you work with people who disagree with you?
I always look at it this way. As you go through a legislative session, we might have hundreds of pieces of legislation go through the legislative process. And if you're going to get upset about somebody or their vote or disagreeing with you, you're going to cancel them out on the next time that you need to agree, work together on something. So I've always made it a point to, try to work across the aisle and even work within my caucus, because I think it's counterproductive if you're going to just, shut somebody off because of their vote. And I've seen it time and time again where I totally disagreed with somebody, whether it be in a committee situation or on the House floor, and then the next day you got to come back and you got to start working together on something. So I try to, handle that. I learned from my experiences early on in the early 90s when I was in city government here, where we were able to debate an issue, and not everybody agreed. But when you walked out of that chamber, you left it in there, and you had a cup of coffee. And we are seeing that collaborative spirit in the legislature right now, and I want to be part of that and continue that collaborative spirit.
Okay, thank you. And the same question for Barbara Wassinger. How will you work with people who you disagree with?
I think that I've been asked that question on a regular basis. I've been taught well by my mother and father to get along with just about anybody. I've learned through all of the things that I have volunteered and served in. You can disagree. You just have to work it out. And once you're outside of the chambers, you need to be able to be civil to one another. And I think that's important, and I believe in that.
Thank you very much. And now for another question here, Barbara Wassinger first. Do you support facilitating immigration and also a pathway to citizenship in bolstering the workforce of Western Kansas?
I know that Kansas relies very heavily on immigrant labor, and I believe in legal immigration. And I think that we need to look at immigration and make it easier for those qualified immigrants to become citizens. And that's the best thing that we can do for Kansas and for the United States.
Okay, thank you. And the same question for Eber Phelps. Do you support facilitating immigration and also a path to citizenship in bolstering the workforce of Western Kansas?
Well, absolutely. We have a situation here in our state, Northwest Kansas in particular, has a rapidly declining population as well as a growing aging population. So we look down also at Southwest Kansas, where there's a very vibrant economy going on down there at this time. All you got to do is go to Garden City and look at the growth that's happening there. Those Southwest communities are very reliant on immigration labor, and hopefully they are, employing folks that are there legally. Unfortunately, we do have some people that are, under the radar, if you will, and are there illegally. I think our law enforcement is able to soon identify the bad guys, but in the meantime, I do agree with if we've got somebody that is here and they're on a work permit, I think we should do everything possible to keep them here and facilitate their pathway to citizenship. As far as the approach that one of our gubernatorial candidates have, I think it's really draconian. I don't think we need to go down to Garden City and round up everybody and harass them. I think that in due time we'll find out who's there illegally. And years ago, I voted in favor of the in-state tuition bill for the children of undocumented immigrants. And one of the things that we had in that criterion to qualify was they had to go to a 3-year accredited high school, and they also had to be on the path to citizenship. If you talk to somebody that's about ready to go
20
through the
seconds.
naturalization process, they've been at it for 10 years. I think we can do something to streamline that.
Okay, thank you. And here's another question. Eber Phelps first. As a young citizen of Ellis County, the two things I am most concerned about are infrastructure and water sources. How do you specifically plan to deal with these two issues?
Well, infrastructure is obviously the lifeblood of a community. All you got to look at is, I mentioned Garden City. Their lifeline is a good highway system, and that goes for most of us in western Kansas. We need to have that infrastructure maintained. We need the enhancement projects as well. What was the second part of that question?
The second part of the question? Water sources?
Oh, water sources. I think probably one of my crown achievements in elective office was being on the city commission years ago when we started the process and purchased the R9 Ranch, which has really come along, in fine fashion. We're soon to hear the results of our change of use permit, but it's also evolved into a regional project, which shows that we are partnering not only with Russell, but we're looking to do partnerships with La Crosse, Victoria, Ellis, and other communities in the area. So where we're located here, it's imperative that we have good sustainable water sources. It defines our parameters of growth, and we are on that path. And as far as being in the legislature and looking at that issue as well, one of the things that I've done is try to get the other legislators in the area and involved, Representative Mastroni from La Crosse, as well as Senator Mary Jo Taylor, keep them in the loop, because that Edwards County Department in their area. On the state level, the water plan, I think, is good. We're seeing irrigators and so forth follow the lead of a lot of communities and trying to be more resourceful in the way they, the crops they plant and the methods in which they water.
Okay, thank you. And the same question here for Barbara Wassinger. As a young citizen of Ellis County, the two things I am most concerned about are infrastructure and water sources. How do you specifically plan to deal with those two issues?
Well, we need to start funding KDOT the way they should be funded and give them back the funds that they're missing. There's no way to take care of the citizens and in the entire state if we don't take care of our infrastructure there. As for the water issue, being part of the R9 Ranch and the water moving from Edwards County to Hayes is essential. And as a legislator, I would absolutely promote that and try to facilitate that continue and being taken care of. The city of Hayes has always been very good stewards of water, and they want to be able to provide other local communities with water that will save them as well. So I think it's important that we work on that and facilitate the pipeline.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we're going to move toward closing statements. And Barbara Wassinger, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. My service to the community has been consistent. I want to continue the goal of making Kansas a place where my children want to live in, 3 of which do out of the 4, and the future generations of all of our children, because Kansas is a beautiful state. It's a wonderful place to live, and we all need to be working together to do that. I think that this election gives voters a clear choice. I plan to maintain a very positive campaign, and I want to continue to work for all of you as a representative of Topeka.
Okay, thank you very much. And Eber Phelps, your closing statement.
Thank you very much, and once again, thank you everybody for coming out here tonight. I look forward to visiting with many of you if you want to stay in a bit with more questions. And also thank you to SBA for their efforts in putting this on. I want to go back to Topeka, as I mentioned in the earlier statements, to kind of continue the work that we've gotten started. As I mentioned, we made great strides. We got our budget balanced for the previous 4 years prior to 2017. The budget was merely given to the governor, and he went and made cuts or allotments. And I think we're back on solid footing. When the 2019 legislature convenes, we're probably going to be looking at possibly up to $700 million in ending balance. And they can do things possibly like we talked about with the sales tax and food and so forth. One of the things that I want to continue is that camaraderie, that collaborative spirit. I've always, worked well with the other side. Interestingly enough, I've heard some people talk about me being partisan and voting with the Democrat leadership 90% of the time or 92% of the time. I always look at a campaign a little bit like a court trial where you get prepared and you get all the facts together. So just out of curiosity, I got a whole legislative research, and I have my voting record for the last 2 years, and I have Representative Don Heineman from Dighton. He's the Republican majority leader, and I couldn't help but go through and you see the check marks in the head. Don and I voted together 95% of the time, and so
20 seconds.
we couldn't, accomplish everything we did if people weren't willing to collaborate, cooperate, and communicate. And I think that I've shown that I'm able to do that, and I'm ready to do it now. Thank you, and I appreciate the vote on November 6th.
Okay, thank you very much, and I want to thank the candidates, Heber Phelps and Barbara Wassinger, for coming out and having a debate, and thank you, Student Government Association. Thank you, Dr. Rollader Sook, and I'm Dr. Jay Steinmetz. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. No, that was somebody here before. I thought there was going to be a bottle of water or something over here. So I got this. Cold coffee now.